The Mermaid's Shoes by Sana Telu. Mia said goodbye to the sea on the last day of vacation. She was looking for shells to take home. What was that lying in the sand? Had someone forgotten something? Mia was curious. She took a closer look. Mermaid's shoes, she thought. They fit perfectly. Mia was tired after the long journey home. The rumble of traffic reminded her of the murmur of the sea. It seemed so long ago when she played in the waves. Mia still wore her mermaid shoes as she fell asleep. Her dreams flowed with friends from the sea. Fantastic fish with spots and stripes swam around her. One even looked like a horse. Mia kept her new shoes on even in the playground. Her friends were astonished. "What have you got in your feet?" they asked. "I'm a mermaid," said Mia. "These are my fins." "They can't be," said Tommy. "You haven't got a tail." One thing was missing. Mia made a mermaid's tail out of one of her mother's old skirts. To the sea! It was much too far away, so Mia rode her bike to the zoo. She knew a sea was there. She had been before. It was just like walking on the bottom of the sea. Mia had forgotten about the scary fish with the teeth. Would it eat mermaids? Mia rode her bike to the river. She leaned over the railing and peered into the water below. There were no big fish with teeth there, but it seemed very deep. Of course, she thought. I should be in the museum. She stood in the sea hall and looked up. This sea is far too dry, she thought. What was a mermaid without water? Mia gave up. She couldn't find the sea. She rode home. Then she heard a gentle murmur. Riding around the corner, she felt drops of water splash gently on her face. She saw the most wonderful creatures. There was even a fish that looked like a horse. She left her bike and climbed over the edge. Look at that. And that's how it began. She's in a fountain. Look at all the pictures of other mermaids. And that's the end of the Mermaid's Shoes. Hello everyone, welcome to Hands On Books. Today we're going to do an experiment related to the book that we just read, Mermaid's Shoes. And what we're going to do is we're going to make the layers of the ocean in this jar. So what you'll need for this project is a glass jar about 30 ounces or larger, 5 paper cups with some spoons, a measuring cup. I have a 4th measuring cup. We do need to measure out 3/4 for each one. Food coloring, we're mostly going to use blue. You could use green. Some vegetable oil, rubbing alcohol, light corn syrup, some dish soap, preferably the blue Dawn dish soap. We've got a little bit of yellow just to add some more, and some water. So once you get those ingredients, we can start the project. Okay, the first layer of the ocean we're going to make is the trench layer. So you're going to start with the light corn syrup, and you're going to measure out 3/4 cup of the light corn syrup. And then you're going to put it into one of these plastic cups. So my measuring cup is 1/4, so to get 3/4, of course, you'll need 3 of these. Okay, so once you get that all measured out and in the cup, this is going to be your darkest layer. It says, the instructions that I have say to use it from, or to use black food coloring, but if you don't have black, just try to make it as dark blue as possible. You could add some other colors to make it a dark brown maybe. Usually the box will tell you, if you have a box of food coloring like this, it'll tell you right on the box how to get a brown or other colors, how many drops of each color. Okay, so beforehand I mixed up some color to make sure we could get as dark a color as we could. I kind of got a dark brown, and the way that I did it, I added, let's see, we start with red. I added 7 drops of red, and it's very light drop here. Okay, and then I add the yellow. We want to add 4 drops of yellow. If you want to test your color with water first before you add it to the corn syrup so you don't waste the corn syrup, you could try that too. Then green, we added 2 drops of green. And then I added 3 drops of blue. And then once you get all those colors in there, just take a spoon, we have a plastic spoon, and just kind of mix it up so that all the colors can mix and make a dark brown color for you. Once you get the color mixed up and you have it stirred up to make it to the right consistency and the right shade that you want to take that corn syrup and you're going to carefully pour it into the bottom of your glass jar. You don't want it to splatter too much on the sides, so try to pour it as slowly as you can. And if you had black food coloring, that would be the ideal color to have at the bottom, because this is the bottom layer of the ocean. It's very dark. Okay. So there's our trench layer. The next layer we're going to mix up is called the abyss layer, and you're going to need your dish soap for that. For the next layer, the abyss layer, you're going to use your blue Dawn dish soap. And you don't really need to add any food coloring to this if you're using the blue, because it's kind of the color that we want it to be. I'm using some yellow just because I don't have enough blue. So we'll see what color it is when I mix the two to get enough for 3/4 cup. If I need to, I can add a little bit of blue to make it more blue. Okay, so we're going to start by putting 3/4 cup of the yellow dish soap in first. I'm going to start with a cup, 1/4 cup, and then I'll do a blue layer just to see. I might have enough blue for 2/4 cup. I did have to rinse out my measuring cup between the corn syrup and the dish soap just because that corn syrup is so thick it kind of sticks to the sides. And you don't want to have too much corn syrup in this layer because you want them to be separate. I'm going to probably need to put a little bit more yellow in here just because I'm running out of the blue. So I may need to add some more blue food coloring. We'll see what color. It's probably going to be more green than blue. I don't know if you can see it there. It is a little bit more green. I'm going to mix it up, and then if I need to, I'll add a little bit of blue food coloring. I did mix all of my Dawn dish soap and my yellow dish soap together, and it was a little bit lighter. It was more of a green. I added 2 drops of blue food coloring. It's a little bit more of an aqua green now, or aqua blue, but I think it's okay to put in. It's a little bit dark enough. So you're just going to take that cup that you mixed with the dish soap, and again, you're going to slowly pour it in because you kind of want it to sit on top of this layer, the dark bottom layer. So we're going to slowly pour it in, try not to splash any onto the sides. And it should hopefully just sit right on top of that dark layer, and you should hopefully be able to tell the difference in colors. And you really don't need, I mean, if you wanted to do this just to see how they sit, you don't need to have all blues. You could use other colors. You could maybe make a rainbow jar. But we're doing ocean, so we made it blue. So there is the next layer, and then the next layer that we're going to do is called the midnight layer. For the next layer is the midnight layer, you're going to use water. So you're going to use 3/4 cup of water. So I have a pitcher of water, and you want to use another plastic cup. So once you have your water measured out, you're going to just put maybe 1 or 2 drops of blue food coloring. Let's start with 1 to see how dark it makes it. And then if you want to add more, you can add more. You really only need a very small drop, because it makes it pretty dark. The food coloring is usually very concentrated. You don't need a lot. I think we really only need 1 drop. So once that's mixed up, we're going to go ahead and pour that, again, very carefully on top of our layer of dish soap. Okay, the next layer that we're going to make is called the twilight layer. And what you need for this is your vegetable oil. So you're going to measure, again, 3/4 cup of vegetable oil and put it into another plastic cup. And for this layer, the instructions do not say to add any food coloring. So we're just going to pour it in like it is. And again, very carefully into the jar. You can kind of see already there's a little bit of color change there. And then next, we're going to do the sunlight layer. Okay, for the last layer, the sunlight layer, you're going to use the rubbing alcohol. So again, we're going to measure out the 3/4 cup into the measuring cup and then into your plastic cup. It does say to add a little bit of food coloring. If you have a light blue food coloring, that would be perfect. If not, you can maybe try to add just a tiny, tiny drop of your regular blue. We don't want it to be too bright. Okay, so once you have that food coloring in there, just kind of mix it up. Then, once it's ready, pour it into the jar carefully. So you can kind of see how our jar turned out. You see the top layer, you can kind of see the in-between layers. It's a little bit darker on the bottom than we probably had hoped. This camera isn't giving it as much light, But what I'm looking at, you can definitely see the dark layer and then a little bit lighter layer, a little bit more bluer layer, and then of course the light layer at the top. So hopefully yours turns out. I will show you a picture of what it should look like according to the website.